Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Kane Audio Vlog. It is Friday, so it's time for another Ask Me Anything. Usual rules apply. If you've got any kind of question, music industry, music production, sound design, whatever related, then ask in the comments below, and next Friday I will read them out and hopefully answer the questions. Before I get started at looking at last week's questions, house admin wise, I don't think there's anything to update on. If you're American, which I think a lot of the viewers of this channel seem to be, then happy Thanksgiving to you. Other than that, what have I been doing this week? I don't think there's anything major happened. Still in the temporary studio. We're getting close to Christmas, so I think in all reality, for both time wise and, let's be real, finance as well, I don't think I'm going to be even looking at starting the new studio build until the new year at the very earliest, which is a bit frustrating, but I'll be honest, I'm starting to get used to this room now, so it's not as bad as I thought it would be at first. What else? I don't think there's anything else to update you on this week. So onwards with the AMA. Can't think of anything. I'm sure there was something, but I'll probably remember about 5 minutes after I finished recording this video. Right. Starting at the top, Deadmau5 Ingo, the Mexican Deadmau5. Hey Don, thanks for this week's AMA. My question this time would be, what would you recommend for learning to mix your tracks? Best sources, things to look for, and some good examples. That's a tough one, because I've got several books on, I think there's one called The Art of Mixing, there's another one called Understanding the Mix or something like that. I can't remember, I've read them years ago, and if I'm totally honest with you, they probably weren't much use. It's not, certainly not ones I would recommend. A lot of them, the thing is with mixing, and I think we'll find most people that watch these videos on this channel are probably a similar style of music to me, at least electronic music. So mixing electronic music is a very different beast to mixing, say, rock bands or classical or any other major genre. And I think for the electronic side of stuff, it's still quite a new industry with new technology, and it's still evolving pretty fast. So there aren't really any books. If you look at books on mixing techniques, then they'll cover things like microphone techniques and effects on guitars and how to get your bass guitar sounding good, and while they the theory kind of transfers across to most things, it's not super relevant, so that's a tricky one. I did start a Mixdown series on this channel. I have done one Mixdown for it. I will do another. My plan is, like I think I've said before, if I haven't then I'm going to say it again now. My plan is, when I get the new studio built, I'm going to launch that with a new Mixdown series, because with the way I've got things set up in this house, it's very difficult for me to get the right camera angles, and because the camera's microphone is right next to one of the monitor speakers, if I was to do a mix in this room and film it, I'd be playing it relatively loud, and you're not going to be able to hear me speak over the speaker that's right next to the microphone. And it's also going to give all sorts of feedback and distortion, and the microphone is turned up loud because I'm using a DSLR and blah blah blah, and the internal sound of the camera is loud, so I have to turn that right down and the microphone right up so that you can hear me, which means you're really going to hear a speaker that's right next to the microphone. So once I've got the studio set up, I promise I will be doing a full Mixdown series. Having said that, I'm also in talks with another company, and I might do a video series for them on mixing, so there might be that, but I can't really say much more at this point. As for things to look for and some good examples, I guess that's also a tricky one. I think this comes back to something we've been kind of talking about the last few weeks. Is I think something everybody needs to realise at some point is that you know, people talk about to master a craft you need to put in 10,000 hours of experience, and I'm not saying the 10,000 hours is right or not, but I think as producers you need to understand, if you want to get good at mixing and you're not using a professional mix engineer, then you need to expect that it's going to take a very long time. So my best advice, practice as much as you can. In fact, I'd tell you what I'll say is, if more of you guys start joining my Facebook group, I'll put a link to that below this video, maybe somebody can post there and suggest a Mixdown swap. I think that's a good way to learn, is just swapping Mixdowns with your friends. You do theirs, they do yours, and send it back to each other, because that way you can kind of learn other people's opinions, and you know, if you decided somebody else's snare drum was too loud, you can tell them and they'll come back going, right, okay, next time my snare will be like this, that or the other. I think that's probably the best way, because in fairness, you know, for me personally, I always did my own mixdowns, but I've been producing for nearly 20 years, so I've got a lot of experience in that, and over that time period I've got better and better equipment and better rooms and better acoustic treatment, and all of these things add to the quality of a mixdown. So there isn't really a quick and easy way other than just getting out there and doing it as much as you can. I see you've put a massive edit in here. Edit, I actually remembered one thing that happened to me a few days ago, and I wanted to share it with you, Dom, and with community here. So I was working on my remix of the track Wolves that Marshmallow and Selima Gomez made, and I wanted a feedback on my progress so far, and a good friend from Discord server told me that I should upload the track to SoundCloud, make it private, and send them the link so he can give feedback, and I went to do so. And as I uploaded the track, it got removed because of the copyright material, vocals in this case, so I got a bit angry about it. My goal was not to get money from it, just wanted to get feedback from my friends. So my question would be, what is your opinion about situations like this, when smaller artists or someone who just got started in music production world can't have a chance to upload something that he made and just credit the original artist for the thing that he used in this track? So before I carry on reading, I think it's kind of a tricky one, that, because if it was my track, if I was the owner of that copyright, I wouldn't care. And in fact, there are some tracks historically on when I used to run a record label, people used to approach me saying, look, I've done this, can I just give it out to friends or whatever? Not a problem, never a problem for me. But when you're dealing with a major record label, and in fact my small label went towards the end of its life, I was using a company that will automatically scan and remove stuff for pirate reasons, and they were very good systems, but unfortunately it stops, you know, people like yourself from just doing something with a friend. So my response would be, unfortunately it's a bit shit, but I think that's the world we live in, because if you were to have a team of people looking after, what was the track, Wolves, if you had a team of people who were saying yes to some people, no to others, you know, it's a full-time job, because there's probably thousands of people doing versions of that track, so they have to do it with automated systems now, and unfortunately it just means that the automated system will pull out your track because it doesn't know the difference between, say, a private SoundCloud track that you're not going to make money on compared to a public SoundCloud track where you're maybe linking to the official or unofficial release. So it's kind of a tricky situation. However, I would say, why upload to SoundCloud privately? Use Dropbox or WeTransfer, or just send it to them in an email. If you're worried about someone downloading it, well, you can download anything off SoundCloud if you Google how to for 2 seconds, you know, so I wouldn't worry about that too much either, to be honest. So in this situation, we're talking about huge names that everyone has heard of. It just makes me mad because they already earn a lot from the track itself, and they're already pretty famous, and people will hear their new songs but don't want to give smaller artists a chance to show something. So yeah, so this is kind of what I'm saying, is they're not doing it. I think you have to understand, they're not doing it to stop you as a new artist. They're using a company that just automatically, it's all automated bots on the internet just searching anything, and they don't know the difference between you uploading a little demo to your friend on SoundCloud or you uploading the original version to Pirate Bay. They don't know, you know, the bot doesn't know the difference between that. So for all they know, that private link, you could upload it privately on SoundCloud, and then you could put that private link on Pirate Bay or a bunch of torrent sites and just give away the track for free. So the bot doesn't know what you're doing with it. It doesn't know that you're only sending it to one person for some feedback, and it never will know the difference. So again, like I say, I would just say don't use SoundCloud for that. Use something like Dropbox and send it through that. It's kind of a shit situation, which I understand your frustration, but there is a reason for it, and it's not to stop artists experimenting with things. As for them making a lot of money, do they? I don't know, and that's a genuine question. I'm sure they make a lot of money from, I see it's Marshmello and Selena Gomez, their names I know of. You know, they probably make a lot of money from other things like merchandise or touring or whatever it is they do, I don't know. But they probably don't make a lot of money from selling the music directly. I don't think many artists do. You know, even if you get Spotify playlisted and get millions of plays and whatever, you know, you're looking at thousands of pounds rather than tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. And for someone of that size who probably makes a couple of million a year, a few thousand in selling music, which is supposed to be their career, is really not that big a deal for them. Of course, you know, as a new artist, anyone would love to get a few thousand for their release, but if you're already touring the world and whatever, and you're putting this music out and only getting a few thousand for it when that's supposed to be your main source of income, kind of doesn't add up. So yeah, something that he is proud of and wants to give people a chance of hearing it and maybe interested in his work. It's just so sad to me that people like that don't care about the smaller artists that have just started, don't get a chance to upload it even if you credit them. Blah blah blah. Sometimes necessary to copyright protect your material, but in a situation like this where big artists already got their name on top, that everyone's heard of, it makes me think that they only do it for the money, not for the passion and the love of music itself. Well, I want to agree with you, but I don't, because the law's the law. Really, I mean, at the end of the day, I would say if you're a new artist, be a new artist, make new music, don't remix somebody else's work, because then they get all the credit anyway. So do you really want to be crediting already famous artists for what's essentially your hard work? So I would look at it that way round. And there's, you know, a lot of these artists, remember the reason they got famous, and I always use Skrillex in this example. He became superstar famous almost overnight, because until then, yeah, okay, here in Britain, in Bristol and London and a few pockets around Britain, we had dubstep, and it was a fairly big thing. It was an underground scene. Skrillex took that to the pop world. He reinvented what dubstep was, because dubstep originally was dub, and very dubby and a few wobbles here and there, whereas Skrillex took that, infused it with what I would call heavy metal, and just took it to this whole new level. The reason he got famous and remains famous is because he kind of reinvented a new thing that became popular. So I've always sort of suggested, don't copy other artists and don't remix other artists unofficially, because you're only really ever going to sound like them, and that's not doing you any favours. So I think that's something to consider. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but everyone has different opinion about this, and I hope you'll understand what I'm saying here. I'm sorry if I'm completely wrong here, and pretty sure that some people would disagree with my opinion. Sorry for this long text, but I couldn't really shorten the story at all. I hope you have a good week. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I 100% understand your frustration. I don't 100% agree, and I think there's maybe other ways of looking at it that I've mentioned. Yeah, but also I understand. Sunset 86, hey Don, sorry can't remember the keyword. Did I give one last week? Not sure, but I did make it through on AMA 27. Anyways, thanks for answering my questions. Do you still have plans to make another Mixdown miniseries? I've just mentioned that, as I could watch them for hours. I guess like all noobs to mixing, I overcomplicate the process, but you make it seem easier to grasp the concepts. Cheers again and have a great weekend. Thank you, you too. Yeah, so I've already explained, once I've got the new studio built up, I'm 100% committed to doing at least one or two more Mixdown series. I called it the Mixdown series because I want it to be a series. And yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of people overcomplicate it, and sometimes it can be quite simple, and sometimes it's about grasping the basic or the more basic elements of just getting the tangible things like the kicks and the bass to just fit together. And there are a couple of different techniques of doing that, and once you've got that, everything else kind of wraps around those, and I think the process becomes somewhat easier. And a lot of people I see doing mixdowns, and they're using compressors everywhere in every channel, and I just look at it and I think, why are you even using that many compressors? It's like you used a compressor to make your kicks louder, then another one to make the snares louder, then the synths louder, the bass louder, the drums louder, whatever else louder. Now you've just got everything sounding loud. You're no different, you're no better off, because everything is still equally competing now. Where you had everything, say, at -5 dB, now you've got everything at -3. Overall, to the human ear, there's now no difference. It's just all a bit louder. You may as well have just grabbed the master and knocked it up 2 dB. It's not, you're not improving anything, and I think a lot of people overcomplicate in that way. Personally, I like to try and stick to maybe 4 overall buses in a mix bus, that everything kind of gets grouped into 4 or 5 key elements, and then you'll treat those individually, and even then rarely with compressors. So yeah, it's definitely on the cards. It's going to happen. Unknown artist, hi Don, thank you for your answers, appreciate it. No questions this time around, but look forward to the next AMA after a tough week's graft. All the best. Cheers. Cavacay, more good stuff, Dom. Cheers. Very intrigued by your secret unreleased track. Oh yeah. Looking forward to your album even more, with that inclusion. Yeah. So the album thing, I've already kind of made a couple of moves by just I've opened up a load of unfinished projects, and I've kind of placed them in a rough folder of these could become an album one day. So hopefully I'll get onto that. I'm hoping next year. I really wanted to get a couple more EPs out with Mau5trap before I move on to the album. I don't think I'm quite there yet, so I'm hoping to get an EP in the new year, and then maybe one in the summer, and then I can really start focusing on nailing the album if I feel I'm ready at the time. But yeah, that unreleased track, yeah, hope it won't be my vocal, because I cannot sing. Even when I've melodined it, it's still wrong in every way. But yeah, all the parts there. Hope Warehouse project went well. It did. It was great. A bit gutted to miss that one, but just got back from watching John Hopkins live, so can't feel too sorry for myself. Yeah, I bet that was a good gig. Warehouse project was great. It was my first time there in that venue, actually, and it's a great venue. Really, really good. Well organised. Amazing to finally meet up with Charlie Monster Get Down. We had a riot. Yeah, that was great, and of course Rin's in as well. Lovely, lovely guy. And hopefully there's more to come off the back of that, because yeah, it's a great night out. Where am I? Rod Marconi. Hi Dom, can you explain a little about a LFO and what, if any, specific tools you use for this? Love the AMAs, thank you. I don't know what you want me to say about LFO, really. I like to play with them in Bitwig because the ability to manipulate any parameter from another device really pays dividends in Bitwig. It's a phenomenal thing, and you can really get creative. So, for example, I've done a couple of tracks recently that I've grabbed an LFO. So I've got a hi-hat, for example, and I've made it quite a long hi-hat, so it's quite an open sounding hi-hat with a big tail end, but I'll bring down the decay and release so it's shorter and sharper, you know, on eighth notes in between the kicks. And I will then drop in one of Bitwig's LFOs before that and apply that to the decay and release time of the hi-hat, and then I'll set it to a slowly ramping exponential wave going up over, say, 4, 8 or 16 bars. So the hi-hat starts getting longer and longer and longer, and then cuts back into short every 4, 8 or 16 bars. So I like to do lots of little tricks like that. I also like to sometimes randomize velocities of synths, especially if it's an arpeggiator. Something like that can get, you know, an arpeggiator, you're looking at, say, 16th notes, and say your pattern is a total of 4 or 8 notes. When they're repeating throughout an entire track, it can really start to get a bit dry and a bit not doing anything new. Whereas if you then chuck an LFO on, say, the velocity of the synth, or maybe the filter, or, well, anything really, but I tend to play with the velocity, so I'll make sure that the arpeggiator sound has a velocity control in there that might control another element of sound, maybe the waveform or the filter cutoff or something along those lines. And then I'll set sometimes an envelope follower or a randomized LFO to then go in, say, 16th notes, or maybe to slowly ramp over 4 bars or something. So it's just an awkward change every now and then. And I find it just sort of brings a bit of life into a synth. It gives that sort of almost analog drifting type human element to a sound. Yeah, so I think that's about as much as I can explain without a more specific question. But yeah, specific tools I use is classic LFO modulator in Bitwig. That does it for me. Yeah, I mean, obviously I use LFO tool as my side chain. I don't really venture beyond that too much because they do everything I want them to do. So L7, hey Dom, can you explain how deadmau5 gets that big room drum sound? No. I think, and I have mentioned this a lot on my channel before, where similarly to earlier on where I was kind of talking about the Mixdown and overusing compressors and things like that, I've always felt like if you need to use a big compressor on your kick drum, if that's your first port of call, you've probably gone wrong already, in that maybe you should have picked a different drum sound in the first place. There are so many samples out there available, so if you want a kick drum to smash your teeth out, then there are going to be samples out there that do it for you. So I kind of feel like, well, why would you use a compressor for that? You don't need a compressor unless you know how to use compressors in a creative, stylistic technique. Then you kind of just don't need them. So as far as Deadmau5 goes, I honestly don't know how he gets them so big, but I would imagine, and I can't speak on his behalf, but I would imagine he probably just nails the sound in the first place, and either finds a kick drum sample and just reprocesses it to make it big, and then that becomes his new sample, or creates it from a synth or drum machine or whatever it is he uses. I don't know, but I should imagine it's about carefully selecting sounds in the first place, and I think that's something a lot of producers often maybe don't spend enough time on, is does the kick drum work, or does this kick drum work with this hi-hat, and do those together work with this snare drum, and do those together work with this tom drum, and do those together work with this ride cymbal? You need to constantly ask yourself, do all these drums sound like they come from the same place? If, for example, you were using a big distorted EDM kick drum, and then you had a nice acoustic snare drum on top, in my head that's just not going to work. It's like painting your living room walls grey and then having a luminous green feature wall. It's just, they're two completely different things. Or having some nice rustic cabinets but then putting some chrome lining on the wooden cabinets. It's just not, it's a clash of styles. And I guess, as a producer, you need to ask yourself, what's the vibe I'm going for here? Am I going for some sort of deeper underground techno thing where I need my kicks to have a sharp transient but a big sub element to it, and therefore is my clap going to be a nice tight minimal gritty clap that fits into that? Or am I going to use this big harsh 909 snare? Personally, I'd go with the nice clicky gritty clap. So I think with someone like Deadmau5, that's probably how he does it, is he just nails that sound in the first place, and then it should hopefully sort of fall together afterwards. But in all honesty, I've not watched him produce from anything ever, so I don't know what it is, and but ultimately, yes, I'm jealous, because he's a genius at that, and he does manage to somehow make tracks that just sound massive without being massive, and I don't know how he does that. I wish I knew. I mean, I kind of get a rough idea, and I suppose my sort of sound is not like that, and I'm not aiming for that either, so I can't say I've ever really ventured down that road to try and nail it. But if I did try, I probably wouldn't get close to what he does. But then Deadmau5 does Deadmau5, and I do me, so it is what it is. There we go. Hopefully that gives you a rough idea. I think I've kind of answered the question without answering the question there, so sorry about that. I can see my camera is about to hit the 30-minute mark, so I'm just going to hit the reset, and I will be back in a second. I'm back, and we're nearly done. Right, where do I get to? Big room sounds. Outsider. Thanks for another weekly, Dom. Enjoy your weekend with the Mau5trap guys. I did. Cheers. I had a question, but as I typed, I forgot. Typical. Anyway, I bought your sample pack last Saturday. Very happy, go you. Cheers. and it gave me an idea I wanted to run past you and some of the regulars here. I thought it could be fun to hold a couple of competitions based on using only the sample pack to write a song or X amount of bars idea. It might be a shite idea, but I thought it could be worth discussing among everyone, question mark. There are replies to this. So first off, let me reread it. I thought it could be good to hold a couple of competitions based on using only the sample pack to write a song. Yeah. But I thought it would be worth discussing with everyone. Okay. Unknown Artist has replied, I'd be up for something like this. Outsider, great, hopefully we can get a few of us together and make it happen. It'll help Dom too, as I guess as everyone would be buying the sample pack, which is only like 10 quid or something. And then Unknown Artist again, yeah, cool, let's see what happens. Okay, yeah, I think there's definitely something in that. The only problem would be is that obviously sample packs are royalty free, and that's one of the reasons I do them, is because you can make your own track using whatever you want and it's yours. So I guess, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is obviously the Mau5trap competition I did with Sonic Academy, which was a remix competition, and the winner of that got a release on the next We Are Friends compilation, which by the way is out next month, I think, with that remix in. So that kind of had an end goal. There was a definite prize in that, and it was quite easy to, well, not easy to judge, it was difficult to judge, but it was easy to know how to judge because it was quite clear set rules and it was remixing a track that we already had the copyright to. So doing a competition on something that didn't have copyright might be a bit tricky, because if I announced a winner I still wouldn't own any copyright and wouldn't, you know, so there wouldn't be a label to release it on other than your own, which is fine and great, but I'm not sure if that would help anyone for anything. It would kind of help me, obviously, with you guys buying the sample pack, but then you guys don't get anything for that other than having bought a sample pack. Okay, I'm gonna think about that, because I think there's something in there, but it needs a little something else. But yeah, let's keep talking about that, because yeah, I think that's probably a good thing for this channel to have a competition of some sort go on anyway. Oh, speaking of which, no, I'll get to that. Right, there's only one comment left. Serrano Black, what's your tattoo of, and would you get another? My tattoo, is it on that arm? Yeah. Is, I think I may have said this before, or it might not have been on this channel. It was the logo for the parent company of a record label that I loved when I was 18, and I ended up talking to the guys at that record label and did some bits and pieces and then got the tattoo. And I think I have said this somewhere before, because I remember saying that, lucky for me, in one way or another, that label eventually disbanded. I don't think they went bust, but they disbanded. And lucky for me, it was at their peak. They were doing techno, underground techno, and it was only 10 years later that I then thought, damn, that was lucky, because in hindsight that record label could have started releasing Britney Spears stuff or One Direction or something, and then used that logo for a One Direction album or something, and then I'm stuck with a tattoo that was a Britney Spears tattoo or something. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so that could have gone horribly wrong. In hindsight, luckily it didn't, and luckily they just always put out consistently banging techno, and yeah, so I'm still sort of proud of that. I like it. Would I get another? Yes. I very nearly got a tattoo a few years ago. I wanted to get my left arm sleeve from essentially neck all the way down. What I wanted was textbook font and textbook font size, the number pi written out, starting along my shoulder and then spiraling in tiny font all the way down my arm to my wrist, ending with a dot dot dot. I still kind of like that idea because when I did my audio degree, we used pi for working out waveforms and functions within sine waves, and it's a vital element to anything circular or anything periodic being a waveform. So I kind of wanted that as a nerdy sleeve. I didn't get it in the end because I spoke to a few tattooists, and there are a couple of them that went, yeah, we can do that, be great, not a problem. And then there was one tattooist who said, do you know what? That might look a bit weird in 10-20 years time, because tattoos kind of smudge and fade a bit over time, which is perfectly normal. But if you've got tiny fine print in that tattoo, it's probably just going to smudge into blur and just look like smudged ink all the way down your arm, which again wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing ever. And you know, I get that tattoos smudge and fade, but they're about a time in your life, and I get, you know, I think most people who get tattoos want it to represent a moment in their life of whatever it is that's going on at that time. I think I probably missed that boat for that tattoo, and then I thought about it too much and then thought, yeah, I don't know if I want that just blurry smudge all down my arm. So yeah, I kind of opted out of it in the end, but I still sometimes think about that. Other than that, I'm all for tattoos, but I feel like if I was going to get another one, it has to mean something. It has to have some value. So, you know, with this tattoo I got when I was 18, it represents where my life was and where my love was at age 18. So it represents, to me, I look back at it with fond memories, because I was going out every weekend and going to these nights that were playing this techno, and that really kind of steered my life in a particular direction at that time. So I'm still proud of that tattoo, and it means a lot to me. And of course, being the nerd I am, pi means a lot to me. So that kind of, you know, and either that or maybe wave function or something as an equation. But it's all about the placement on the body and getting it right, and having something that I can look back in 10-20 years time and go, yeah, I made the right choice. And I think that's the hardest part of getting a tattoo. Otherwise you end up with, you know, I see some people out there and they're just sort of like, they'll have what they would probably call a sleeve, but actually it's just random unrelated pictures. And I kind of think like, well, to me that's not good quality tattoos. That's just random artwork on your body, which is fine if that's what you want, but that's not what I want. So there we go. That, my friends, is the last question. There was something I was going to mention as well, and I said, I'll get to that later. Something about Facebook. Oh, yeah, so some of you that follow my Facebook fan page may have noticed that this week just gone, on Monday, I or was it Tuesday, or whatever, I uploaded an AMA from a couple of weeks ago. So if you're watching this on Facebook, then hello. If you're watching this on YouTube, then you can say hello in a few weeks time on Facebook. So yeah, so the idea is I kind of figured I need to maybe push this channel a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm uploading these on YouTube on a Friday when I can, and then I'm going to stagger the releases so that they come out on Facebook probably 2 or 3 weeks behind. So if you are watching this on Facebook, not only hello, but also where have you been? Get onto YouTube, because that's where it's going first. But as I say, that is sort of partly I don't upload enough content to my Facebook fan page to make me satisfied with the amount I'm putting out. So I kind of figured that one way of doing that is to sort of do that and potentially get some more exposure. So if you are watching this channel and you're a regular YouTube viewer, then please feel free to jump on Facebook and like, comment, share, whatever there. However, I won't be answering the questions from Facebook, or not at this point anyway. If it picks up, then maybe we'll do something, but I don't want it to get too confusing. So yeah, that should have been in-house admin right at the beginning of the video, but it wasn't because I'm an idiot. Yeah, I think that is it for this week. So once again, thanks for listening. If you've made it this far in, we're probably at like 40 minutes by now, so you definitely deserve a medal. And I'm scanning the room looking for a keyword for you to comment to prove you've made it this far into the video. I'm going to say comment the word sub 37 and I'll give you a high five next week. I'll see you there. Cheers.